Welcome to the wonderful world of psychology. My name is Susan Scrafton and I'll be your tutor for the Foundations of Psychology module. So what will we be doing in the module? Well, over the course of 10 weeks, that's 1 3-hour lecture per week and the same amount of self-study time, we'll be looking at how psychologists both explain and investigate behaviour. I'm not sure if you're aware, but psychology is different from the other sciences in that we're not governed by a single set of principles. We refer to many approaches. In each approach views the person and the study of the person differently. We'll be looking at 5 approaches, some of which you may already have heard of. There's the biological approach, which focuses on physiology to explain behaviour. So they're interested in concepts such as genes, not the denim kind, but whether or not your behaviour is inherited from your parents. If, however, you think that behaviour is more governed by nurture rather than nature, then you'll be interested in the behaviourist approach, which focuses on learning and the environment. And from this approach, you'll find out just why Pavlov's dog salivated to the sound of a bell. We'll also be looking at the psychodynamic approach, which is normally associated with Freud and unconscious needs and desires. Is behaviour motivated by sex? Well, by studying this approach, you'll find out. If, however, you're interested in whether behaviour is motivated by what goes on in your head rather than in your pants, then you might be interested in the cognitive approach, which emphasises mental processes such as attention, memory and reasoning. And finally, we have the humanistic approach. According to this approach, if we were left to our own devices, we wouldn't plunge into the depths of iniquity like some approaches might suggest. Instead, we'd rise to fulfil our potential, to become the best person we possibly can. So, 5 different approaches, 5 different explanations and different focuses for investigating behaviour. And we'll use those approaches to explain some very simple behaviours like nail biting or smoking, but also some more complex behaviours like moral development and gender development. And there'll be some very controversial explanations, which, as you've guessed, when it comes down to Freud, yes, a lot of it is about sex, but maybe not in the way you thought. So as I said, we'll also look at investigating behaviour. So we'll look at Freud's case studies, Kohlberg's moral dilemma technique, and the method favoured by many psychologists, the experiment. Not only will we carry out experiments in class, we'll also consider, because this is psychology, whether or not the experiment is an appropriate method to investigate behaviour. And, taking that one step further, whether we should be using any scientific methods. You will have 2 formal pieces of assessment. One will be an essay, which will be on ethical issues in psychological research, and there'll be a 2-hour end of module test. If you're the type of person who normally worries about assessments, please try not to. There'll be plenty of activities to prepare you for these assessments and plenty of opportunity for you to come and discuss them with me. So what do I ask for my first lesson? All I want is for you to come to the lesson with an open mind and a willingness to understand. If you'd like to do some reading beforehand, then please look up some of the famous studies, or maybe that should be infamous studies, in psychology, such as Watson and Rayner's Little Albert experiment, or Stanley Milgram's obedience experiments, or Philip Zimbardo's Stanford prison experiment. Look to see why these are so controversial, why people are concerned about the ethical treatment of participants. If you'd like to do some reading, then maybe you could find out about the approaches that I mentioned. If you do this, you can do it from any introductory psychology book. If you do this, and you happen to stumble across Freud, please don't be too harsh on him. He's much misunderstood. Or maybe that's just reaction formation on my part. At the end of the module, you'll be able to make up your own mind.